off. The recording is in progress.
Right, so you haven't heard one of these, so get ready for the weird opening. In the year 1993, Rita Repulsor escaped after 10,000 years, and Zordon recruited a team of teenagers with attitude.
I think I was a teenager with attitude in 1993. I was like a poser, right? I was like wearing skating gear, but I couldn't skate at all. The one time I tried to skateboard, I hurt myself, but I played in a band. I guess that makes up for it, because you know who doesn't seem to. Hey, actually, is there an episode of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where they all form a band?
Must be.
If not of Mighty Morphin, one of the Power Rangers shows, because there's been like 20-something at this point.
Yeah, because there are the California Dreams, which is a Saved by the Bell knockoff that focused on the California event. What?
We were just talking about California Dreams on my podcast literally a couple of days ago, and we were trying to remember if California Dreams was a band in California Dreams. And it turned out that me and my co-host had watched completely different seasons of California Dreams, because later on they just forget they're in a band and stop talking about that. So I know them as a band, and he was like, "A band? What do you mean?"
Oh, I'm on your side. I knew about the band. I didn't watch that one though so much. I don't have my weird obsession with that. So okay, there we go. Okay. First off, this is Matt.
This is Luke.
This is the Sci-Fi Sanctuary, where I am supposed to be your grumpy old dad that's drug off to watch the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But yeah,
we're also joined today by Dave Bulmer, someone I've been a fan of, I think, for a long old time. Since seeing your a cappella Mario music back when I was still in school.
Oh, that was ages ago. Were you still in school?
Like high school, not like elementary school. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Pretty sure I was.
Yeah. Well, that was when I was in my, I don't know, 20s. Well, it depends on what Mario music you mean. I guess if it was, but I think probably Mario Land was the last Mario-based one that I did. And that was I 30 by then? I might have been. Can't remember.
I don't know why I'm trying to answer that question. I don't know how old you are.
It must have been about 20. 12
that's your age.
I think you're about 6 years older than me, because I happen to know that you were 13 in 1996.
Yeah, well, I turned 14 in 1996.
Okay.
But I was 13 in part of 1996, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like right on the other age of the Mighty Morphin age barrier, because I would have been 14 when this movie came out, meaning I was just, like 3 years earlier, like it would have been cool probably. I all the colors looked appealing on the TV, but there were girls coming over by that point. So
well, I can tell you this much. I was about, I think, 11 when it started. I think it started on British TV in about 1993, possibly 94. So I was 11 or 12. And when it was on its way and we saw the adverts for it coming up, I remember us all like being like, that looks awful. Like, is this a joke? Are we supposed to watch this? Are these just big balloon people slapping each other? What is this? Because that was, I'd never seen any Super Sentai or any of that. Never seen the like. So to me, I'd never seen costumes like that. And they all, yes, I had. I'd seen Mr. Blobby. That's what they look like. They look like Mr. Blobby. They look like big, soft balloon people smacking each other. And then we almost ironically, like me and my brother, watched the first episode and we're just like, wait a minute though. Quite entertaining. And then by episode 3, we were devoted fans and could not stop watching it.
Okay. So I guess, because I'm that little bit younger, I was just 100% on board from the moment I saw it. There was no element of irony or comedy. I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in my life.
It would have been like a mixture of normal to you, as in like, I'm a child, show me images on TV, I'll watch them, this is fine.
Yeah.
And like, if that was the latest thing, you'd be like, oh, whoa, okay. Kind of like I was with Turtles, I suppose.
I guess I stepped into this one pretty backwards, where I I watched like grainy UHF Ultraman in the 80s.
Oh, there you are. So you knew about this stuff already,
right? But I didn't watch this stuff because I saw my grainy Ultraman. I saw the reboot thing a few years ago for a reason I don't quite remember. And then I just saw this like 2 nights ago. So other than channel flipping in the 90s, this is the first time I saw like the proper Power Rangers.
Oh, you've not seen this before, like for this podcast, you've seen this.
Yeah, I watched it for this podcast. Yeah, so
Ah.
that's the point here. I'm the grumpy old man that's drug in to watch it.
Speaking of being dragged in to watch this, I will tell you this, that when this film was on its way, which was a good, couple of years into Power Rangers, and it was very much a thing. And in fact, these aren't the original Power Rangers, some of them.
Yeah, I think there's only like 2 of the original 5 in there.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later. But when I went to see this, I was very, very excited to see it. But I was aware I was a bit too old for that. So I did this whole pantomime on the way into the cinema of appearing to be being dragged there by my younger brother and being annoyed about it. So I had a big grumpy face on all the way up the stairs, and like, all right, here we are. Okay, his little brother. And I was there entirely for my own entertainment.
And a big happy glow. Yeah, it is that. My daughter's 12 now, so it's like we don't see animated films anymore, right?
What? 12? I'm still watching them.
No, well, she'll probably get back to them. Well, no, she watches anime. She wants to watch Haikyuu, the volleyball anime. But it's, as far as like Pixar or something, that's off the table at the moment. So
fair enough. It wasn't when I was 12. I was all in for it. In fact, I think I was 12 when Return of Jafar came out on video, the first and one of the most notorious straight-to-video Disney sequels. Never mind, like, no hint of irony. I loved it. Thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, because I also do a Pokemon podcast, and people always bring up, like, well, you like the first couple you play, and then you have a few years where you go away from it. I was like, no, I never had that.
Really?
Like, I played the first one, played every single one, and loved it throughout. And I'm quite proud to say I never really had a phase where I was like pretended not to like anything.
Yeah,
I was born without a sense of shame.
Yes. So, I mean, as we can tell, we are podcasting now. You
yes.
Don't do that if you have a sense of shame.
So yeah, I was all through my teens. I was just like, I'm into what I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
What you unabashedly like, though, you still might not share. While we're other podcasting, I do in just about like weird educational films, and I showed my friends, since we were like 10 years old, like this thing from American public television in the 80s that's super trippy. He's like, why didn't you ever tell me about this? I'm like, because it's not, when you're 12, it's not like, hey, I saw this cool thing on public TV, that's supposed to teach you letters, even though now as like adults we can be like, wow, that is whack and trippy, but it didn't. Even if you dig it, maybe you don't tell your friends about it. So maybe that's my question. So Dave was going in with grumpy face to see this movie. Luke, what were you doing?
So I literally dragged my mother and father to watch this movie with me, and they've not forgiven me.
Yes, now that's the thing. On the way in, I was tremendously excited, and I think on the way out, I might have stopped being a Power Rangers fan.
Oh.
I think that might have been the day that did it. This was one of the first. The way I remember it is this is the first time that I was disappointed in the cinema. Because before that I was not discerning. I was just a child, and I went to see the things that you were supposed to see. I saw Turtles 3 and wasn't disappointed. I recognized that it wasn't as good as Turtles 1. I must have done, because I never ended up with it on video, so it can't have been something I was that into. But that day is difficult to measure what my response to the film was, because there was only me and my friend in the cinema, so we basically spent the whole time running around and lying across seats and things, and just thinking it was just an absolutely brilliant time we were having. So like that, it almost didn't matter what the film was, I guess. So
yeah,
but yeah, no, Power Rangers the movie. Yes, I went in expecting a lot, because the hype for the movie, the build up to the movie, and my personal hype for it was real, with capital R. Like, by the way, listeners, I'm from Sonic the Comic, the podcast, because I'm a fan of the old British Sonic comics. And in those comics around this time, there was this advert on the back page for several issues in a row, advertising little toys of the figures from the film that you could get by sending off getting enough packets of Frosties, and for Americans, that's Frosted Flakes. And you could get these figures. And so because of this picture, I could see that the Power Rangers in the film weren't going to just be Lycra costumes. they were going to be armor. They were going to have all of these segmented bits all over. I thought it was going to be armor. In the actual film, it's basically shaped rubber with a couple of bits of plastic sellotaped on. But it looked amazing. It was all segmented into different bits, and I was very excited about the film. And then yes, what I got was something that I didn't think was even as good as an episode of Power Rangers, unfortunately.
What we got back, it didn't live long.
I think at the time I was too young to notice that.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of nostalgia for this film, so I still enjoy watching it. But now I can see, it's not as good as just the stuff they were stealing from Japan.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, because I think because there's a certain quality to the Super Sentai stuff, people thought of it as bad. People thought of it as a bit scrappy. And so here's a film. This isn't going to be homemade. We've got CG in this. We've got a budget. We can make... And it all ends up looking so much more homemade than the Zooranga, or whatever it is. I don't know how you pronounce it. Zooranga footage that they used in Power Rangers. Like, it's not... Anyway, never mind.
But I'm sure we'll get way more into all of this later on.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I should throw in that I have seen a fair amount of Kamen Rider playing on company TVs before watching this. But yeah, I will do the plot from this. This being my first entry.
It won't take you long.
I might have it won't take me too long, but I might have.
Matt always overwrites these, so it will take him too long.
Let's overwrite.
Somebody has to, I suppose.
The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they all skydive onto a small target while their idiot friends miss the mark and unleash the 7,000-year-old villainy of Ivan Ooze. Ivan's all cray-cray evil. He mostly murders the Power Rangers. Overlord Zondar strips the Rangers of their power and dispatches those amateur TV show villains. While the Power Rangers go zipping around the galaxy using the last of their reserves, Ooze enslaves all of the parents to bring on the age of Ivan or something. The Power Rangers enlist the help of softcore Zondar ally Dulcia and become Ninja Rangers. I know they had a different name, forgot it already, with lamer costumes, unless it's the 90s, wherein they are fully fat with a PH. The Power Rangers return to Earth, where Ivan Ooze has managed to create some mecha kaiju to screw shit up. Since the enslaved parents are no longer needed, Ooze mind controls them to their doom, only to be thwarted by some lame kid. Meanwhile, the Power Rangers Voltron up to smash up some CGI mechs. With the day saved, the Rangers return to home base and solve death, which brings back Zondar. And a 90s party.
That is almost to the word all correct. There's really only one word I take any umbrage with, but yeah, I like that a lot.
I know which word he takes umbrage with. It's Zordon.
Oh, thank you. Who's Zondar?
Oh, no. Oh, the planet is something like that, isn't it?
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Isn't the planet like Xandar?
No, I don't think so. That may just be something from something else.
That's just something from Matt's brain, I guess.
Oh, here it says Zordon a few lines up. Oops, that's a mistype. Maybe it maybe it spell corrected for me, except it's I do as a notepad, so it doesn't spell correct anything.
There's no reason why you should know the name of Zordon of Eltar.
Yeah.
He's you know what I mean? He's just a big wibbly head. It doesn't matter. If you don't watch Power Rangers, he doesn't matter.
Yeah, whereas for me, he's like, how could you not know Zordon?
I know, yeah.
But yeah, of course you wouldn't know Zordon.
I mean, I give
strikes me as a bit weird, but I'll give him
proper credence to big floating heads,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been seeing the Red Dwarf big floating head around this time, I guess. So
there is an amazing cosplay I've seen
yeah.
where a guy, he put a tube over his head and then had a little command center with the action figures. And he went to a Comic-Con as Zordon. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I could just re-edit and patch myself as that works. I'd be like, you damn kids and your Zondar, right? So it works out. Now I knew we had added a Ranger by this time. I didn't know we had lost some Rangers by this time, and I've heard there's a curse to the Rangers. So I guess my question is, how many were in prison when this movie came out?
No, it's not. No, that's not. That wasn't the problem. I think what it was. I should have researched it for this podcast, but I think what it was, just from what I remember, is that 3 of them basically, was it 3, attempted to renegotiate their contracts,
Mhm.
and the company went, "What? We never agreed to pay you." And they went, "Okay, well, because this is a film. Like, you understand, there's a film we're gonna make. Like, that's different to just doing a dub kind of a Japanese TV show. I know we're not exactly what you might call union, but we deserve bit paying for this film." And they were like, "No." And so they left. And so there's a whole season of Power Rangers where, I don't know how much of the season it is, maybe it's half, it's quite a lot of episodes where really conspicuously some of the Power Rangers aren't in it, but are being made to look as if they are. Like, you're constantly
Okay.
just seeing over the shoulder of someone with similar hair bobbing up and down a bit while an impression of their voice is being done by
Wow.
just someone. And I didn't notice at the time as a kid, even though by this time I was like 13, 14. I didn't notice, but to watch them back now, it's hilarious how obvious it is that they're trying to compensate for the absence of several key cast members. And they even, like, they played dirty. Like, they brought in these like equivalent teenagers, you know, who dress in because the Power Rangers always dressed in colors to represent what Power Ranger they were, even in their normal civvies. And they brought in these other kids who were like, "Hi, we're the new characters, and we wear those colors as well." And as I understand it, that was explicitly a threat to the ones who were trying to renegotiate their contracts. And and anyway, they continued on, and so they left the series. And so yes, we have these new Power Rangers just in time for the film to come out and to ruin the film. I remember watching it and being like, "Well, I don't accept that this isn't the Power Rangers. I came to see the Power Rangers."
I think I was a bit of that, because I think on British TV, I don't think we'd caught up to them changing actors.
No, or they just done it or something.
Yeah, or maybe it
was
had on Sky, but not on real TV.
It was a really new thing, and it just it was just gross, and we didn't like it.
For reference, Matt, it's the yellow, black, and red Rangers had all had their actors replaced at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely noticed that the Black Ranger wasn't leaving much of a mark here. like yeah, I mean, I was just like, it's 90s TV, so maybe none of them fit. But yeah, there's zero chemistry between our intrepid team of heroes.
Yes, they're not really. They're not. Yes, they're not the best, are they? Like, fair play to all of them, and I nothing against any of them, but in terms of acting, it is very much low budget kids TV rather than film adaptation of low budget kids TV, isn't it?
Yep. I think even Tommy hadn't become the White Ranger for us yet.
No,
I think
I think he just had, but it was around this exact time.
Yeah,
I tell you why it's difficult to measure for me, because for me, because we got it on terrestrial TV a year or 2 years after they did in America, stuff started to filter through. So the first time that we found out that there was a White Ranger, you have to be careful what order you say the words in. The first time I found out there was going to be a White Ranger of Power was when they released a single. They released like a remix of the Power Rangers theme tune for Christmas. Must have been 94 or and there's the end of the single is just a little clip. It kind of like the music fades out, and then you get, "Sorry, Dan, what's that in the viewing globe?" "That is the future you are seeing, Alpha. That is the White Ranger." And it echoed off, and that was like meant to be a tease. We're like, the what? Even though it was already on in America, like they'd already done it. But they knew what was coming here. They had a bit more time to essentially trial it. But I knew already, because my friend had been to Hamley's, the toy shop in London, the big toy shop, and they had these imported Power Ranger toys, and they had the White Ranger there, and he told us this, and we thought he was lying. We thought he was just telling fibs. But then there was this tease, and then the album comes out. And by the way, Power Rangers: A Rock Adventure is a good album. Shut up. And if there's one thing out of all Power Rangers to keep, it's that album, a good album. And but it tells this story, and it's sort of made to they use clips from different episodes to kind of build a Power Rangers story soundscape. It isn't really about much. A monster comes down, they fight it, and the songs are just there. And in that, they do again that is the future you're seeing. That is the White Ranger, and they do this White Ranger Tiger Power song, and so all of this, like, we knew was coming, and it's just difficult to pin down whether it had come or not. But this film definitely landed in the cinema at what was the wrong time. Put it that way.
I guess because I'm a little younger, I could see what was on TV and what I got bought for my birthday, but I couldn't really explore beyond that. So I think the poster for the movie was because I could tell because he's got like the sash. Yeah. So I knew he was the same character. I was like, oh, why is the Green Ranger white now? What's going on here? And I thought the movie would be the origin of that.
Yes. There's a lot of things the movie might or could or should have been, but it wasn't.
The movie gave you an origin for these Zords, and then the show just did a different origin anyway.
That's the problem. So, Matt, you won't really know this, but like, these are not the power. When they start, they already have different powers to when Power Rangers started. Because in the TV series, there's been this big overhaul. The Zords, the robots they have died, and you see them all like die. And so then Zordon goes like, well, I better give you some better ones then. And out come these incredible new ones, and they were amazing. And then you bought all the new toys, and they were amazing. And then, yes, I know for certain that this is how the film was out of order to UK terrestrial TV. We had not had any idea that they were going to get ninja powers, which is the ninjetti. We didn't know they were going to be ninja rangers. That was not a thing we had. So that was where I was like, oh, that's the premise of this film, is like, this is the origin of the next set of Zords. That's so exciting. The last time it happened, it was the most exciting thing that had ever happened on Power Rangers. That was where Lord Zed came from. The bloke who's just got no skin and his brain's sat out, and he's amazing. Well, so I'm like, great, let's go and watch this thing where these... And then the new Zords come in, and it's a bit rubbish. And then, on TV... they get those Zords again. The same actors playing the same characters get the ninja powers in a different, even stupider way to do with a guy who has a voice like that. Oh, I'm the new ninja master. Oh! And it was awful. That was when I stopped watching Power Rangers. But presumably in America, that had already happened. And then they were like, we're doing a film. We've got to have something origin-y in it. We'll just do that again. We'll do a new version of how they get those powers, and nobody will care.
Stupid kids will never notice.
This is... I am good. I thought I was going to sneeze. Like Transformers the movie, this film's problems all come from the fact that studio people don't realize how much kids care about this shit.
Yeah.
Because the thing there was like...
we wouldn't care.
They assumed that we could just kill off all the old characters and bring in new toys, because kids don't care. And then it was like... an emotional devastation seeing Optimus Prime die.
They should have fought and paid to keep the original actors in Power Rangers, because as it turns out, even though now all these years on, with Power Rangers, I think still going.
Oh yeah.
It's totally normal for there to be new Rangers, new casts, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Of course, over in Japan, they did that once a year. That was the whole premise. There was a whole new thing every year. What the people at Saban didn't really appreciate was, and same goes for Saved by the Bell, by the way, we weren't, it turns out, watching it for the premise. We were watching it for those people. And yes, the premise was that's more for Saved by the Bell than Power Rangers, because for Power Rangers, we were also watching it for the premise. But when the original people went away and did so without much ceremony and as if it didn't matter, it was like, no, then, like, they're gone then. I don't care anymore. And that made this film a bit trickier to watch.
They know at this point how much those actors are worth, because anytime they want to make something to bring us back, it's like, look, Tommy's back. Look, Jason's back.
Yeah.
So eventually they cottoned on, but just, a bit too late, maybe. Whereas, I guess I was young enough that they were right. I didn't care.
Oh, fair enough then.
I mean, I do remember it being a surprise when I watched the film, a little bit of like, oh, this isn't Power Rangers. But I kept watching up through like Zeo, probably Turbo, something like that.
Okay.
And then I have a younger brother, so he got into it just as I got out of it. So I was vaguely aware of Power Rangers for quite a long run. But
I was wondering, because we also have the villains, which would be the adult actors, and I was sitting here thinking, I'm getting short shrift of the proper villains, aren't I?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Rita and Zed, like the woman in the red weird guy. They were the main villains on TV at this point.
I was aware of that just from
Yeah.
channel
So-
surfing in the 90s.
Then the gold one is one of their like main henchmen from the TV show.
Yeah, he'd always been there. From
That
the
pig thing isn't.
No, he's just new for this. He's like, do you remember in the Masters of the Universe film where they had that weird little dwarf guy instead of Orko? That was this pig. That was the next generation's version of that was this pig in this film. He is nothing. He's literally he's never been in the TV show. He never was in it afterwards. As far as I know, he's nothing. Apparently there are I don't know why I know this. I think we heard this quite recently. Like I feel like the last couple of years we heard this, that there actually were deleted scenes that explained who he was, and he was like Goldar's cousin or something. So it wouldn't have mattered who he was, but some mention of who he was might have been nice.
Because
He's on work study right now.
Usually in
learning
the
arts
show,
ability.
there is another monster who hangs around at their base, like the weird
There's two
white.
more.
There's like the. I just remember that, like, I want to say he's a goat. I don't think he is.
No, I know. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the guy who makes the monsters
Yeah.
out of clay.
So
But
I
then there's-
assumed this was supposed to be him, and they just decided to give him a completely different costume.
Yeah, they just made another one. No, and then there was and I can't remember their individual names. One of them's Babu, the one that's like a big tall sort of slightly monkey looking guy with glasses, and he's a bit intellectual looking.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. So
Oh,
there's another
well, then
one?
the other one, the other one is a shorter guy who's a little bit rattier looking. He's kind of light blue grey, and he's the one who goes, "I will make you a monster on my special conveyor belt." You know,
I
make
think
me
I
some putties. All right, I will. Finster.
think I've combined those two in my head
Yes,
into one
you may have.
character. Yeah, but yeah, definitely not this big. Anyway,
Yeah.
And oh, here we go. Who are the annoying dudes? I do remember being annoyed by them.
Bulk and
while
Skull?
yeah, when channel flipping in the 90s and being like in the day being like, these guys are real annoying.
originally they were like theoretically the school bullies,
They were the bullies, yes.
but they're basically just comedy characters.
It was
Show
like
up,
what
do some
it was-
slapstick for 5 minutes every episode, and have a little theme tune.
I think by this time in the series they were cops. Which is
Ah,
not reflected
that
in the film.
does happen eventually. I remember that because in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, I remember that they're cops by that point.
Oh, maybe they're cops then, and I'm just misremembering. But I think I saw the series where they were cops, and maybe I saw Turbo. No, I don't think I did.
Just other than they are in the plane at the start of the movie, they don't their story doesn't really intersect at all with
No.
anything else ever.
Well,
No, you made it sound in the summary. You made it sound as if their failure to skydive correctly is what frees Ivan Ooze, but that's not the case. They just happen to land where he's being freed.
No, I just
And,
wanted to blame them with that. That's all.
Yeah.
I actually
That's
understood
fair.
I understood what I was doing.
I
Yeah.
think
It was
what they were
calculated.
going for with them was like a Flash Thompson thing, where they're
Yeah.
mean to the real characters, but they're big fans of the Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, that is exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like the way that they're mean to the Power Rangers. You said they're sort of ostensibly the school bullies, and that's really how it is. Like, what would actually happen is that they would go like, "We're better than you," and then they would, enter a competition to beat them or whatever. And every episode of Power Rangers ended with them being so badly, like they would lose so badly that as an adult you watch it and you're like, the Power Rangers are the bullies. Every single episode, yes, it'll just be that a cake goes in their face or something, but in a way where it's like someone will push their head right into it, and then they'll all go ha ha ha, and then the credits will come up and go do 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 bum bum, and it's not nice what they do to Bulk and Skull. It's no wonder they were against them. They're horrible to them.
Oh yeah, because the Power Rangers, they're not like geeks and outcasts. They're clearly supposed to be the cool kids.
Oh yeah, they're the rich jocks.
Yeah. And then these two is this chubby guy and this like little scared guy. Yeah, they are the ones getting bullied.
Yes.
These
That's
Power
the premise
Rangers
of
will be
Oh.
Power Rangers.
first
So
against
is
the wall in the
this
revolution.
is this how bullies see the people they bully? So the Power Rangers don't realize they're the bullies. They're like, well, these
Yeah.
guys are freaks, so we're the heroes in this story.
Exactly. They think they're the best. And these two guys who are always trying to beat them at stuff because they're bad. No, it's because then they'd have some self-respect. Like they'd have something in their own lives that isn't just that, I'm supposed to worship these rich kids. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
So they should, in fact, be the actual stars of the show. We should be doing the whole thing from their perspectives
the
and
thing
learn about
is-
life they're in.
The thing is, Bulk and Skull outlasted all of them. Bulk and Skull were the Screech of Power Rangers. They stayed put through multiple revolving casts and ended up being in it, into the 2000s. They were there until I was like long since left university and didn't even ironically look at it ever again. Do you know what I mean? They really were. They stayed, and fair play to them. They presumably made some bank off it.
Well, see,
They must have crossed the Roger Moore line, though. What were they when they finished? Like 70 years old? Because
Yeah,
they're
probably.
already
Well,
fully
yeah, no, I
middle-aged here.
Well, in the case of Screech and Saved by the Bell, they dealt with that by making him a member of faculty. I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened to Bulk and Skull. I mean, they became cops at some point. So, yeah, I guess they did just become like community members who were grown-ups. Yeah, that probably is the case.
but I think all the Power Rangers actors, I guess because they're vaguely handsome and can act, they all assume that they've got big careers ahead of them.
Yeah.
Whereas Bulk and Skull were just smart enough to know, like, this is probably what we've got. Let's just stick with it.
Yeah, no, it may be, yeah.
Because even like Tommy, is it Jason? No, Jason's. I can't remember his name.
Jason Frank?
See, I wanted to say Jason Scott Card, but I think that's the guy who wrote Ender's Game.
That's Orson
Orson.
Scott Card you're thinking of, but yeah. You got the Son Scott Card bit. I think it's Jason Frank, but don't quote me on that. It's
Jason David Frank, because I
it's
always
David
remember
Frank.
it as
I
a
thought there was
three-part.
something in
Yeah.
between. Yes.
And Austin St. John is
Yes.
plays Jason Lee Scott. That's why I'm getting all these names mixed up.
Although
Anyway, White
it's
Ranger.
probably Austin St. John, isn't it? That's how St. John is pronounced. Is that true in America? It is here.
I have no. I would say Saint, I guess. Yeah.
Anyway, the point I was trying to make is he's probably the closest to becoming a star.
He was
And even
already
he
like 35.
basically just gets to keep doing Power Rangers cameos. He's
Well,
never got any bigger.
Well, he became I think an MMA fighter or something like
Yeah,
that.
his
He
whole
became
thing
a
was that he
fighter.
was like the MMA fighter who fights for Jesus.
Oh, really? For Jesus? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was like a big Christian born again guy
Oh,
as
right.
he was an MMA fighter.
Huh. That's theologically complex, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here to work out what your shtick would be. Like would you come in robes and stuff?
See, I could imagine what they would do if he was in the WWE doing that,
Yeah, that's why I'm
but
probably
not
thinking,
in
to be
like
honest.
real life UFC.
Yeah. He should have gone to WWE then. Yeah, that's the fighting for Jesus I want to see.
Yeah. Well, that's where this is very off topic. The whole
No, Luke, we
why
never
can't
get
I
off
remember
topic.
anyone's names today? Because it's 7 a.m. is why I can't remember anyone's names. Who's the wrestler I look like?
Gold
Couldn't
dust.
possibly tell you.
That's in the right angle. No. the famous one. The one who's friends with Steve Austin.
Oh, that's too famous. I was like, you can't forget that name.
No, because his big shtick was like the whole Austin 316 thing. That came about because he was fighting another wrestler who did do Bible quotes. And then Austin just comes in and goes, yeah, well, Austin 316 says, I'm going to kick your ass. And that became his big catchphrase.
I don't think
That's quite
correct.
a good line.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's not what that verse says.
I don't think there's a book of Austin anyway.
I'm not sure there is an Austin. Do you know that I don't know how it happened, but an IRC channel I was on for like my entire life from the moment I got an internet connection. That was so insular that it got almost its own in language, let alone in jokes. And one of them was that 316 meant good. And it was because of that. It was because of Austin 316, but I don't know what the steps were along the way. And then it got to where you would just say, oh, that's 316. So still now, if I'm at a shop and someone says that's 316, I'm like, yeah, it is. It's quite good, isn't it? And I have to hold it in.
Nice.
And in 1,000 years, he'll be like, to everyone will equate Stone Cold Steve Austin with like John the Baptist. I'm doing that so we can keep so Luke will be happy that The Rock can be Jesus in that forecast of the future.
So the one member of cast we haven't talked about yet is the one who's actually good, which is Ivan Ooze.
Oh, he's so good.
He is having so much fun making this film.
Is this the only
dead
time he
good.
shows up, or is he like a thing?
No, he was just for
he's
this.
not. Yeah, he's not from Power Rangers. He's just in this. I don't
Okay.
think that actor was in Power Rangers in any other capacity either. Because
The
he's
fact
like
that I
a
have to
proper
check,
actor.
yeah.
Yeah, he's actually
not a-
done this kind of stuff, basically, I think is what he's done.
Well, he's not like. It's not like getting, I don't know, a big famous name in. It's not like he's this extremely established actor. But he was a proper actor who was in proper things as well as silly things. So like I've
Yeah.
seen him in two things other than Power Rangers that I'm aware of. One is that he's the vicar in Hot Fuzz, the best film ever made. And there's a bit where he shows up with a couple of twin shotguns or something, and it's funny.
Mhm.
That's him. And the other one was he was in the original British version of House of Cards in the 80s. And
Okay.
only briefly, he was in like the third series of it, but he was a significant character in that. And that's proper actors are in that. That's like proper drama with actors in it. So yeah, that explains why he's so good and why he stands out so tremendously, especially since the scenes that he's in are mostly up against the villain characters, who are really some of the weakest performances in the whole thing. Not least because most of them are just costumes. But then, whoever it is they've got to play Rita Repulsa, I'm not sure she knew it was the actual filming day. Like, it seems as if she's saving herself for the film because she's miming the words, but not really putting any oomph into them, if you see what I mean. Whereas she's still voiced by the proper woman who voices Rita Repulsa, which is this great big screamy voice, and she's just kind of talking at a normal pace with her mouth, and it doesn't work.
Were they deliberately trying to capture the energy of her being dubbed in the TV show?
That's what it looks like, isn't it? That's what you can't help but think.
But you have brought up Hot Fuzz now, so I have to go on a tangent.
Okay.
That was filmed in my hometown.
Oh, I've been there then.
Yeah,
or at least, well, I've been to the one that has the square where the vicar gets the gun.
Yeah. Well,
I've
it's the smallest city in England, so it's all the same
Is it?
town. And I went to the same school as Edgar Wright.
Oh,
But so you've been having like a pretty wild storm in the UK, right?
yes.
It actually did knock a steeple off of a church in that town. Not
Yes,
the same one. Not the same one. But
No,
yeah.
but it was down the road, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's near that one, and yeah, people were tweeting, is Adam Buxton okay? That was nice.
So yeah, that was a weird thing. But yeah, anytime Hot Fuzz comes up, I have to mention that. Like, you can see the window of an apartment I would later live in the background of one shot. That's as close as I got to being in it.
All right. Something that I guess we have to bring up is the monsters here, which seems to be a bit of a squib.
Do you mean the actual, like the final boss monsters?
Yeah, I mean, there's the ones from the show, like you mentioned, the henchmen that
but
didn't exist in the show, which I thought they were just going for Bebop and Rocksteady myself, but you see a talking pig, that's what you think, right?
Yeah.
So,
The thing is, I quite like the talking pig, even though he's not from Power Rangers, and so I should rally against him automatically. I do quite like him. I've always remembered the bit where Ivan Ooze says, but you're forgetting I'm a master of disguise. And the pig goes, how can I forget? I never knew. I always like that line.
Yeah, no, it didn't bother me. But yeah, I guess with monsters, I am thinking more of the ending weird CGI. It's almost Babylon 5 level CGI.
I think it's worse. I think it's some of the worst CG I've ever seen.
I think, even as a kid watching it, I was like, this isn't good.
Yeah. That was very much. I don't think I was as far as that. I don't know that I was able to go like, this is bad. But I was going like, I'm not having a good feeling as I watched this. That was what it was. I remember they made me feel bad in a way that I couldn't quite put together, like almost queasy to look at. And now I know what it is. It's that they're rubbish and they're ruining the film, and it's terrible. Because of course, in the TV series, they're literally like. They're not literally the toys that they released, although sometimes they were when the Americans had to remake some of the footage, and it was just the closest thing they had. But they might as well be. Like, they look like toys, the robots that you see on screen.
Especially the transforming sequences, especially.
Yes, they transform in exactly the way that the toys did, which was what was A, so good about the toys, and B, what was so good about the TV show. Like, yeah, you were just watching toys you had being flapped around in the best way, in the coolest way possible. And then in this film, they're like, we can go a step further than that. Instead of that, we're making big robots. Let's break out the CG. But the CG they had was like sub Honey We Shrunk Ourselves CG. Like it's really awful.
Yeah,
1993 is way too early to try pulling that off. Even Jurassic Park is actually.
We're in 95 by now. This is a bit.
I think
along.
3 is when the show started.
Show
but
started.
5 is-
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, Jurassic Park's 93, and since it's come out, it's been 60% of this actually isn't like CG.
Well, they even had the gall to mention Jurassic Park in this film.
I know. In a moment that looks really dubbed over. Did you notice that you can't see anyone's faces during that moment? What the camera is looking at the bones, because I think they're in the bone pit area.
Yeah.
And then
I can't even tell which one said it.
I think it was whatever the Black Ranger's name is.
Adam.
And he goes, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." And then one of the girls goes, very funny. And then the camera pans so you can see them. So I think that's ADR. I think they were just like, we haven't mentioned Jurassic Park yet in this film. Let's put something in.
You're probably right. Yeah, I only remember Adam's name because I find the stuff with him being the frog is actually quite funny.
I'm a frog, yeah. That's the line everyone remembered from seeing this film. I'm a frog.
Yeah.
So I was sitting here looking for
but that fight is okay because it's like they just use a puppet dinosaur skeleton
fine.
ghost.
That
looks good.
Yeah.
On set
They've
stuff,
just got these big puppets. No,
Which
it's as soon as they're
that whole bit on the planet is probably the best bit of the film.
I think the best bit of the film is the opening. This time watching it, I was surprised to find that I was quite enjoying it. I thought I didn't really like the Power Rangers. I mean, at the by the way, I wasn't like that grumpy about it at the time. I thought it was just fine.
Yeah.
But whenever I've seen it as a teenager or an adult, I was like, oh, this is rubbish. So I was surprised that when I started watching, I'm going, wait a minute. It's been a while since I've seen. I mean, first of all, just the novelty of it being like a 16:9 format film rather than a widescreen, in a letterbox. We all bought widescreen TVs to get around that problem, and then they just changed the widescreeniness of everything. So there was that. There was that big screen look to it. There's the fact that all of this skydiving stuff is actually quite well filmed, and then you've got the skating sequence. Not interesting as a kid, but now it's like, oh, cool, fair play. These stunt people are doing well, and there are several moments where they're not stunt people. You can tell they're the actual Rangers. There's actually a really impressive bit because you forget these aren't just actors. These are in fact gymnasts and people who were, if anything, picked for that ability.
They were mostly hired to do the kung fu, right, rather than.
So there's a bit where two of the Rangers backflip into view. Like you're looking at a wall and other posing Rangers, and the last two Rangers backflip past the camera from both sides and join the arrangement. And you're like, oh, that's really them. There's no cut there. They did those flips and they got into that position. Fair play. But that's the trouble. As soon as the story starts, it really highlights that it's not a good film. Because up till then, it's just a quite reasonably filmed action sequence. Less filmic and more like, skating tricks footage type video. But that's fine. But then they do start talking. And yes, then we have to be introduced to some random kid. And yeah, it's not...
Some random kid kills any media, right?
Yeah.
And he was a random kid. He was not.
Yeah, he's not from anything.
No, nor was his dad. They're just made up for this.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. So that's where I'm not in context. I just assume that things are baked in this, and apparently they're just thrown in. So
I think in the TV show we never see who the Power Rangers are rescuing. They're just rescuing a cardboard city.
A lot of the time, well, it would be divided. Yeah, the live action, the American segments where they're not in their costumes, there would always be a Kid of the Week there, and then then there would be Power Ranger Japanese footage, and then you'd go back to the Kid of the Week, and they'd resolve the problem that the Kid of the Week.
Right? Yeah, because the Kid of the Week, he didn't need the Power Rangers to rescue him from a monster. No. He needed these cool teens to teach him a life lesson about. Yeah.
And it might be in some way. It might be in some way tied in with the theme of what the monster is this week, but yes, it would be that. Well, I mean, Matt, if you don't know this, the random naked woman in the middle, not from Power Rangers.
I actually did look it up because she looked a whole lot like Charlize Theron or whatever, so I was like, that can't be one of her first roles, and it's not. So
no.
It was an Australian model.
That's thrown in for the dads.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I did kind of catch that because I when who is this person? And I was like, oh, they're not in anything, including any other Power Rangers. So I actually did pick up that Ivan Ooze. I just picked up, by the fact that it just seemed weird that they were just like shoving their normal villains into a corner. Like even I caught on that. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
They should have gotten like David Bowie to play Ooze. That would have been cool.
It would have, but the thing is, he was the only good one. So I think they should have got David Bowie to play, I don't know, all the Power Rangers.
That would have been cool.
I have a real soft spot for the Power Rangers we have here. That
the
ones that are the ones that are the originals, because I mean, apart from the fact we now know there was dreadful abuse going on and everything, and it was an unpleasant job. So real soft spot for them, and also I just like them. I'm just fond of them. And then now as a grown up, I'm like, oh, good on you to the new kids as well. Like you've got yourselves a job, you're Power Rangers, the kids love you, well done.
Yeah.
It's just not a very good performance, but whatever, that's fine. You weren't being paid, so you shouldn't really put any effort in.
So the CG and stuff at the end is crap.
Yeah.
What I do like about that sequence, it's the only time we actually get to see the individual Zords do anything.
Yes.
In the show, they always immediately make the Megazord.
Yeah.
Because I guess they had a man in a suit costume. They didn't have animatronic animals they could use.
It was because the first few episodes of Power Rangers, they did the separate Zords did do stuff, and then they just ran out of footage of that. They didn't have any more, so they used it all, and so they just had to go straight. Because the thing is, by a few episodes into Power Rangers, they've exhausted all they can do with the footage from all of Zyuranger, and so they start on the next series, but they start trying to so the Green Ranger, he was from Zyuranger. The White Ranger was from a totally different series in which they all looked like the White Ranger and they all had tigery stuff all over their helmets. And so, but they just made it work. They just made sure that these characters and those characters never really hung out together while they were Rangers. They always split off to different quests. So that further limited what footage they could use, because now there's only 3 episodes where that happens, so they have to stick to those ones and things like this. It became very convoluted. It really did. But I didn't notice.
No, same. I think the later seasons, they do actually have a bit more communication with the Japanese.
Well, they got their own. They got their own copies of the costumes, so they were able to film their own stuff. And B, the Japanese studios just were, I don't know, they were just into Power Rangers enough that they started making stuff for them. Especially, they would dig out the old costumes and toys and film new stuff. So yeah, there was a bit of back and forth.
Well, it probably was bringing in a hell of a lot more money than, at least back in the 90s.
Probably.
Than showing in Japan was.
Yeah,
well,
probably. It was huge.
The Japanese, the Super Sentai thing here, certainly not slowing down.
I do notice in Japan, Kamen Rider is way bigger.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider and Ultraman are the two the big ones. And Sentai is the little behind thing.
Unfortunately, the Americanized version of Kamen Rider was
dreadful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'd always wondered, I wonder why Kamen Rider never picked up. And then I watched, did you watch the Toy Galaxy video?
I don't think so.
But that's what I watched recently. I was like, oh, that's why it didn't take off, because they absolutely fucked it.
I'm going to open myself a tab of that video. That sounds like just the sort of thing I'd like to watch. Yeah, no, I just watched it. It was when it was on. It was called Masked Rider, and it was dreadful. And Big Bad Beetleborgs was dreadful. Every time they tried VR Troopers, they kept trying Saved by the Bell style, and they didn't learn from that. It's not what we want. We want Power Rangers. Just make Power. Never mind spending all this money on other footage, hiring other actors. Just get all that money and give it to the Power Rangers so that you can keep the Power Rangers. Yes.
Yeah. But I think when they first started Masked Rider, they tried to do a crossover with Power Rangers.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think I watched that, but I didn't go on to watch the series. Yeah.
They'll never be in the same shot then.
Possibly.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Completely different lighting as they talk to each other with obviously.
Oh, but the out of costume actors can be in the same shot.
Yeah, of course.
Then they'll go into separate superhero stuff.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at. So, my thing, I guess, really was Voltron, right? So, which the individual lions could do things because, it was animated. I had
Yeah.
this awesome die-cast Voltron when I was a kid, and I think one of my first big bouts of utter disappointments when one of the little plastic doohickeys didn't connect, like the head wouldn't go on anymore or something. Still a cool toy.
I had quite a few Zords and Megazords growing up.
Yeah.
And I had the ridiculous Power Rangers figure where the head can change, but it means they're all unbelievably buff to make room in the chest for the alternative head.
Yeah, the you could get Megazord toys, but then the Deluxe Megazord came out, and that was the one that came in the form of the 5 separate.
Yeah.
And not only could you click them together, you clicked them together the exact way that they did on the TV. The same bits opened and the same bits went round the same bits, and that was very, very high quality. Because of course, by this time in Japan, probably from the off, but certainly by this time, they were making them explicitly to sell toys of.
Oh yeah,
and so they were designing the toys and first, and presumably, and then making the series around that. I don't know, but it all lined up exactly. As for Voltron, that was a bit before my time, and so the only way that I found out about it actually was one day in the changing rooms in PE. Somebody was claiming that there used to be a cartoon of Power Rangers that he'd seen, and we were going, "No, they didn't. No, they did, but they were all lions." No, you're making it up. You know, this wasn't the same kid who claimed there was a White Ranger, but it might as well have been. It was that level of incredulity.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I remember those kids. I've seen those kids a few times.
That is where they changed the toy lineup and lost me, because I had my awesome die-cast Mark 1 Voltron, and then they had the cheap plastic Mark 2 that looked, the design was as cool. It's like, no, this isn't cool. Right, I'm 6 years old. I can tell this isn't cool though.
No, I think they got me because every time there was a new Zord, I'm like, this is even cooler. I've got to have it.
Well,
it worked on me basically every time.
I was for a while. That first Deluxe Megazord, there's no way to explain to you how amazing the day we got that was. Then the Dragon Zord that connects up to it. Then the Titanus that connects up to them. All amazing. Then the Thunder Megazord. Oh my god, it was amazing. Like, how could they have topped the original one? Well, they did. And then came the Ninja Zords, which are the ones in this film, represented here in dodgy CG.
I suppose, you do go, dinosaurs, dragons, normal animals.
Yeah. Because the second one was made out of... Because the first ones were dinosaurs, Matt. The second one was all made out of mythic creatures. There was a unicorn and stuff like that. And then, it's just like, here's a bear and a frog. And they didn't... But the thing is, they didn't even look that interesting compared to them. And then... And the Megazord... We got the Megazord toy, and it was all right, but it wasn't really that interesting. It wasn't... You just kind of clipped them together. It wasn't very good. And then they actually kind of, like... Okay, look, the way that the Megazord worked in the original one was that you would get 2 of them and, like, fold them up, and that was the legs, and you would clip the body of the dinosaur one into it, blah, 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 blah. By the time of the Ninja Zord, you just sort of got 2 of the Zords and put them on the sides to be the arms, and it wasn't even disguised. There was just a peg sticking out of them that you put it on, and it was like, well, that's rubbish. And then they brought out the next one, which was the Shogun Zords, and that was literally just 5 dudes. Just 5 blokes.
The individual ones were humans, and then they made a bigger... Yeah,
they weren't even like animals. They were just standing up guys, and then you just put them together without folding anything, without transforming anything, without clipping anything. You just stick them together, and now they're a bigger man. And it's just like, oh, forget it. We used to save up all our pocket money for these. Who cares anymore? And so then I was out. I wasn't watching Power Rangers anymore.
My spirit animal is man.
But for me, I was, before this, after this, during this, I've always been a big Godzilla fan. So part of what I like about Power Rangers is it's basically kaiju stuff, big monster smash city.
Yeah.
And Godzilla, like Power Rangers, it's always best when it's a man in a suit.
Yeah.
Even the recent one, the 2017 movie, the CG and stuff, it didn't look as good. And I occasionally on my Twitter, I'll see a clip from like the Japanese stuff that's coming out now. Or like Matt says, I'll just see it on TV at work.
You just watch it,
That stuff looks great.
Yeah.
They've got really great costumes, really good superimposing. It looks better than either of the films.
Power Rangers is fun. Super Sentai is fun. Power Rangers was like a weird combination between incredibly sweet and babyish and badass. That was what it was aiming for. And then and that's why the Rock Adventure album is so good, because it just has one of those components. Because one of the things about it was always high quality in Power Rangers was the soundtrack. They just had this guy, Ron Wasserman, I want to say, who was really good, and he just banged out these metal songs that he'd written, and like they were good. And so that's why the album's good. But yes, with the TV series, it was an odd combination. And then with the 2017 film, I rewatched the 2017 film in case we were going to discuss it today, and I was surprised to find, because I've always been a big defender of the 2017 film. I always said it was better than it ought to be, and it's not perfect, not brilliant, but a shame that they didn't get to do more with that cast, because I thought they just deserved it. I thought they were good. This time watching it, it was a slightly different experience, because this time I was like, okay, what it is that this is a very likable cast who are doing a stellar job of presenting as best they can an awful script that is not just bad in the terms of like the lines that people say, because there on that level it's just normal, but like it's a fanfic. It's like it's what you would. What it reminds me of is when in the 90s, someone uploaded, or it might have been 2000, something like that. Someone uploaded a screenplay for a film called, what was it? Just Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And not Teenage Mutant, just Ninja Turtles. And it said at the top of the screenplay that it's called that because now it's not silly anymore. And it was like it was like quotes from the quotes from the script to show you how badass it was going to be, like almost like pull quotes on a poster, but like quotes from the script. And it was like things like, we're going to snap their necks, Leonardo. And then there was one that was just like, the one was just like, shit, Raphael. and that was that screenplay, which tried its best to be this like badass grown-up version of Ninja Turtles, which of course, like now that's so silly because there's loads of versions of that. Like just read the comics.
That's what I was saying. There's the original Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. The Power Rangers 2017 reboot film feels like that. It feels like some teenager on the internet writing down like, and then this happens, and then this happens, because they spend absolutely ages just like mucking about in some water and going through some stuff to get to the spaceship, and all the while different characters are going like the Zeo crystal, Eltar, you'll have to morph. They're like saying all the words from Power Rangers, but without it meaning anything anytime they say it, unless you're already a fan of the thing. And it's like, yeah, it's quite tiresome, I found this time.
Also,
I thought the suits looked good.
I think, but if they just used actual practical suits,
yes,
the film could have had Power Rangers scenes in it.
Well, I mean, I think they did. They can't have been CG all the way through, can they?
Well, because I think they are, because you only see them right at the end for that one fight with a couple of rocks, and they get in their Zords.
It's like really brief.
I did watch that one I don't even remember why, but I watched it and I was like halfway through, like, is this a Power Rangers movie?
Yeah.
I mean, not because when they'd say those things, I wasn't a fan. So like you said, I'm like, they're saying things, I don't see how this all connects.
But in the 96 one is the other way. You have all your Power Rangers scenes at the start, but then that's pretty much done for most of the film.
My big complaint about that film when I originally saw it, once I eventually sort of put the words to it, is that all of the marketing had been that amazing shot of just like the crescent moon outlines of their helmets next to each other in a line. It was all about the way they're going to look. It's the Power Rangers. It's the power. They were the biggest thing at the time, and they're going to be in a movie. And we remembered when this happened to Turtles, and what they delivered was like a proper film. And so we were expecting that for Power Rangers, and instead they do show up in the suits for 10 minutes together, and then the suits are dissolved off them, Metroid style, like they lose all their power. And then they're just dressed as ninjas. They go to this planet and they get the new power, but they're just in these cloth ninja suits. And then you see the suits again at the end, and it's not enough. I came here for Power Rangers. If you're not going to give me Power Rangers, what's the thing when they're not the Power Rangers? They're the not in suits teenagers. Well, it's not them either, is it? Two of them are. There's Billy, there's Kimberly. Who are these other guys? I don't care. So what am I supposed to be watching the middle of this film for?
Ivan Ooze.
Yeah,
Ooze, yeah.
basically.
I now recognize as a grown-up Ivan Ooze. He's the best bit, but I didn't get it at the time because there were also some of the stuff that they put in that's for kids. Now I know I was a bit on the old side. I was like 13, but I did think that it was embarrassing how it's all like, oh, he's a booger, oh, he's snot, and shut up. Like
I've never liked that stuff. Like I'm a big Digimon guy, but whenever they start doing poop jokes, it's like, nah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's just worse. It's like it's fine. Like we've all laughed at things like that, especially as kids. Well, no, especially as adults. But it's not as good though, as if you were doing something good.
Yeah, well, that's the thing because I took Power Rangers incredibly seriously at that age, right?
Yeah.
So I want my villain to be villainous, not a comedy booger man.
Because what would have just happened around this time on TV? And did you have Sky at the time?
I don't think so.
No, neither do we. So what had just happened that summer, it was because it was the school summer holiday, and so it was playing in the mornings. And I think the film came out around Christmas of that year. And there was the big episode that was like an hour-long special, or 2 episodes put together, but they played it as well, where Rita Repulsa, out of absolutely nowhere, is kicked out of the villain spot by Lord Zed, who comes stomping in. I knew about him from the album, so I was really looking forward to him coming in, because they do that bit in the album where he shows up and kicks her out. Like, oh, that album, they knew what they were doing. Anyway, and but that, there's no two ways about it. Like, I'm sure if you watch it now, it'd be the silliest kids showist thing in the world, but at the time, even to a 13-year-old, it was incredible. That episode, it was amazing. The stakes, this flayed man with like his blood going round invisible pipes round his muscles and his brain sticking out of his helmet, kicks Rita Repulsa, the villain from Power Rangers, out of Power Rangers. Oh my god, it was the most. And to defeat him, to fight back, that was when they got the Thunder Zords. Oh, because he killed the Zords. It was amazing. And then that was the Power Rangers movie. And then this thing comes out, and it's just, what's this rubbish? Who are these people? Who's this kid? Who's this kid's dad? Who's this slime guy who's like using all the special effects that weren't bad CG were just like, yeah, we got a pot of slime. Well, yeah, I've got one of them. That's not impressive to me. I own one. The bit where he's like disguised as a sort of a conjurer entertainer, and he's like, hey, roll up, kids, buy my slime. And they look at it and they go, ugh. And you're like, no, we've had this toy, the one they're using for the prop. We've had that for years.
It was ectoplasm
since
in the 80s.
Primary school. Sorry, Matt, I shouted over you.
No, it was green for Ghostbusters, right? They changed it pink for Ghostbusters 2. I guess it was time for purple.
Did they? See, that's the thing. To me, it was just like, it wasn't even a tie-in thing. Because I think a lot of American kids talk about Nickelodeon GAC, but we didn't really have Nickelodeon. So here it's just like, yeah, slime. You could just get it. You could just get it. It was just a normal toy you could get.
Yeah.
No, we just give it the name ectoplasm. That's all, because that sounds cool.
I think I bought a pot that was called Flubber at one point.
Yeah, I bet. I had one. My favourite one was in a plastic tub just from the tat aisle at Children's World. It was probably £1. And it was, the tub was in the shape of a dinosaur. Why not? Why not?
Sure.
And then you unscrew the cap at the top and you get all this. And you got loads of the stuff. Loads of slime. And of course, because of the shaped bottle, when you squeeze it back in again, it's very, very satisfying to get the bubbles out. Lovely. And then it was made of thin plastic, so it cracked and it split and it dried out the slime. So it never lasts long, but it was normal. And to have this film where it's like, that's what they were giving us. That was this main special effect. That was the main villain. Also, I might add, all of the slime special effects, like the bit where Ivan Ooze stretches out into a weird long snake.
Oh, to make himself part of the robot?
Yeah. It becomes a phallus, yes.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, God, I wish I could be sophisticated enough to tell you that I know Terminator 2 as well as I know the Super Mario Brothers movie, but it isn't the case. I think that effect or a similar one was in Terminator 2, but definitely it was in Super Mario Brothers at the end, and it was better than it is in this. And it wasn't very good in that. It's terrible special effects, this film. It's heinous. Yes, what happens at the end is Ivan oozes himself, because if you haven't seen it, he can turn into slime and he can do slime stuff and make slime stuff happen. And he turns into some slime, goes into a Zord that he's got an evil Zord, and it turns into looking like him. And the thing is, this is where I got annoyed at the film watching it yesterday. Now what we have is a robot representative of a character that we've seen throughout the film. A CG robot version of a character that we've seen throughout the film. And it looks awful. And this is why that's a problem. It's because 10 years earlier, they turned Michael Jackson into a robot in Moonwalker, and it looked better than this. 10
they
years
made a
ago.
great Sega Genesis game with that one too.
Yeah, they did.
At least it seemed great when I was 12.
with a soundtrack that's just
right.
as good as the real songs. Well worth a listen now and then, especially if you are in that position where you're like, oh damn it, I really like some Michael Jackson songs, but I don't feel right listening to actual Michael Jackson songs. Throw on the Moonwalker soundtrack. That's the answer. It's great.
I have to throw this. You keep bringing up the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger soundtrack as a metal masterpiece.
It is.
So, and obviously you know some Saved by the Bell. So I want to just compare that with the horror show that is the Saved by the Bell soundtrack.
If I spent the 90s looking for a Saved by the Bell CD and failing to find one. It was not released here. I was like, is a man not entitled to the Friends Forever on CD of his own brow? and he wasn't. If I could get a copy of that now, I know it's bad, but it's got Friends Forever on it, and it's got the theme tune on it. That's all I need. Oh, it's got Put Your Mind to It, Go For It. Yeah. That's on there.
Oh, right, the Tweakin' song. Yeah. No, if I want to annoy my wife,
a very important song.
If I need to annoy my wife instantly, yeah, it's time to start singing Friends Forever, of course.
Friends Forever rules. That's just a quite good song. It's just badly produced.
Well, yeah, that's the guy that did the music for that show. It's amazing because he has such a distinct style, but he sucked.
What I love about it is that, assuming, and I'm guessing that the guy who did the music is the guy who's the main singer in it, right? He's the Zach Morris singing voice.
And I think he's the instrumentalist. Scott Gale. Okay. I know too much about this shit.
No, tell me. I'm a big Saved by the Bell fan, and I ought to know these things. I own all the Saved by the Bells on DVD. Asterisk, the good ones. I don't mean there's no new class in there. But in fact, here's my story about that. Sorry, listeners, I'm just talking about now. The day that I decided to finally own all of Saved by the Bell on DVD, that I was lying to myself by trying to be all up myself and be like, oh no, I don't need Saved by the Bell on DVD. Yes, of course I did. So I finally sent off for the DVDs. Now, the post was unreliable here at our flat, so I sent it to the comic shop that my wife worked at, which was normal. That was where we sent all of our post. Well, the postman came by before anyone was at the shop, because it opened quite late. It opened at 10 o'clock. And what he'd done, this postman, is he just left it on the floor, on the ground in a city. Now, this is a comic shop in a city centre, and that with as much foot traffic as that implies. So, and in fact, it's in an area where at the time there was a problem with people stealing things to go and sell for drug money. And so exactly what you're imagining happened. There was an obvious Amazon package on the floor that was obviously going to have something worth selling. And when the whoever was first to the shop that morning showed up, what they found was an opened package with Saved by the Bell DVDs still entirely in it, poking out a little bit, telling a very clear story of what had happened here. That some robber had gone ha, and opened it to steal the contents and gone oh no, you're all right, mate, and just left it there. And anyone else who went past had exactly the same response as well.
In Japan, I could just have my complete set sent to the convenience store for pickup, so no one had to know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But also in Japan, you can leave like a pile of goods outside of a shop for a night and no one will touch it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it blew my mind. My first day I arrived at the airport, people just plug their phone in, walk away.
Oh wow, really? To charge at the sockets. Oh wow.
And I've become too Japanese now. I leave my door unlocked. If I'm in Starbucks, I'll leave my laptop, my Switch, my phone, go to the bathroom, come back.
Yeah.
So if I ever go back to the UK, everything I own is getting stolen.
The thing is, I think you can do that. It's just that we're all too scared to, which is as good as not being able to do it, you know?
Yeah. But it only has to happen to you once, right?
Yeah.
Because I've had my phone stolen, my bike stolen twice in the UK. But here, I've told this story a million times, I'm going to do it again. I lost my wallet. The next day, I went into the police station, told them my name. They're like, yep, we got your wallet. Here you are. Went to work. We got a phone call. You dropped a 10 yen coin. And a police officer came to work.
Oh my God.
To give me this 10 yen coin, which is the equivalent of about 8 pence.
Oh.
So that is how not busy the police are in Nagano, Japan.
Oh, it must be lovely there.
Yep.
Just before I get to wrapping up, I am going to bring up the loaded question. How does this hold up? Which I don't even know.
Well, yes, but the thing is, it holds up the same as it did at the time. Like,
it was
never very good.
It's like it's better and worse than I remember it. Because now I can watch it and I don't really care about the changed cast and stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when I was a kid, this was the coolest action I'd ever seen in my life. And now I'm like, well, that first bit, the fight in the car park in the junkyard where they're being Power Rangers, fighting baddies.
I'd be interested to know this. As a kid at the time, did you... There was a bit that I always disliked, and I wonder if you just thought it was cool, which is the bit where, quite early on, I think it's Tommy, the White Ranger, but he isn't a Power Ranger in this scene, does one of the least convincing wirework moves I think I've ever seen, where whoever it is, anyway, they sort of diagonally slide towards a bad guy while sort of kicking their feet at it and into its chest, and it's awful.
I think I know the move you mean, and
There's
it's
no
not great.
dynamism in it at all. but watching it, the bits like that, watching it this time, I was a bit more accepting of. Frankly, just because I've seen far stupider films since. At the time, it was probably the stupidest film I'd ever seen. But now I've watched loads of stupid films, and so it's kind of like just funny.
And at risk of sounding like a huge wank, it's just nice to see actors on screen doing real moves on each other.
Yes,
because that's pretty rare these days.
It is. Yes.
I mean, you could throw that shot into a Shaw Brothers film, and it would probably work out okay. 70s Hong Kong kung fu.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's not as good as those, and it should have been. That's what they should have. That's where they should have gone all in. No CG. Just do loads of wirework kung fu and do it really well, and then it would have been quite good. But
that's what the Wachowskis figured out, right? They hired the man who does that.
Yep. This was before Hollywood knew how to choreograph fights.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. One thing that did hold up differently this time, though, and better, is the I song in the end credits. I quite liked it this time. I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world back then, and I didn't think it was a very good song, and I thought it sounded a bit wet and weak. And it does, but I don't know. It's a laugh in it.
Yeah. So does it hold up? No. Did it ever? No. But Matt, as our dad that we dragged to see the Power Rangers movie, how was your first viewing?
Did I bring a flask of whiskey into the theater with me?
Nope. You had to watch it bone dry.
Oh, screw this movie. Okay.
How many viewings did this take you to get through?
My notorious 5 viewings actually haven't been the thing recently. I did it in 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like I didn't have to slog through it. We'll give it that credit.
Yeah.
You come in knowing that it's going to be grade A American cheese, so you got that worked out already. Well,
Yeah, I did slog. I saw it in 3, and the first sort of 20 minutes quite enjoyed. The next 20 minutes, oh my god! And then I forced my way through the rest.
it's nighttime, and that's why I asked about the whiskey. I was sitting here drinking my Chuhai watching it, so yeah. It's
So I did do it in one sitting, not last night, the night before. I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
As I did watch the videotape to death. But I had tapes of a couple of TV episodes. I definitely watched those more.
That's it. Yeah, we had the video of the first episodes, and then we just taped all the rest of the episode. As soon as we knew we liked it, we just taped them all. So we would just watch those over and over again. Yeah, this didn't get watched all that much.
Yeah.
I guess I should have compared it with an actual episode, but I thought I was like, oh, it's the movie they're giving. This is like here in 2022. I was like assuming, oh, they're going to give me the best that this franchise has to offer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and that's how this represented to me. I was like, I guess this is as good as it gets, but I guess it's not. So
yeah,
it's not. But if you tried to watch any Power Rangers as a 40-year-old man who hasn't seen it before, none of it's going to be good.
Yeah, well, it's like watching the Kamen Rider at work, right?
Yeah.
Although that has some harrowing moments from time to time.
They love crucifying people in Kamen Rider. Anytime a character's been kidnapped and needs to be rescued, they're on a cross. I don't know why that's so big in Japanese kids' TV, but they love it.
Yeah. Final thoughts on this one. Oh, go ahead.
I would say if you happened to want to watch a Power Rangers episode to compare this to, go with the Mutiny. That's the 3. I've just looked it up. 3-part episode, which is the opening of season 2 of Power Rangers. That's the one where Lord Zed first comes in, and it's the one I thought was the most badass they ever did. So if you don't like that, you don't like Power Rangers.
There you go. Right, I think we've said as much as anyone needs to say on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie.
Okay.
Dave, where can people find you on that there internet?
All right, then. Well, I've got a couple of podcasts of my own. Every 2 weeks, I do Sonic the Comic, the podcast with Chris McFeely off of YouTube's Transformers The Basics. And that is here in the UK in the very first days of Sonic, starting in 1993. So not the very first days, but just after Sonic 2 had come out. We had a comic, not the one that they had in America, a totally different comic, which was just like the actual games, and it always followed them, and it didn't, because the American comics kind of did their own thing. But also, it happened to be a sort of games magazine light, so it had news, gaming news, and reviews, and it had lots of strips based on other Sega games like Golden Axe, and famously, Mark Miller's take on Streets of Rage is well worth a look, just for its artifact of history type thing. And on Sonic the Comic, the podcast, which you'll find by just typing those words into something or going to stctp.wigglehe.com. Sorry about wigglehe.com. It's a nonsense, but it has it. Just go to wigglehe.com by itself and you'll see what's going on there, and it's very odd. But yeah, we cover everything, including the adverts and the letters page, because we're not so much trying to tell you what happens to Sonic the Hedgehog in the comic. We're trying to tell you what it was like to be a child in the 90s in the UK. So we fold in TV adverts and theme tunes and tapes that I made at the time and things like this. We're trying to actually put you in a place and let you live there and see that our Sonic was the best Sonic, and it was better, and it's wrong that they've retconned it all out. Kinterbore forever. Sonic the Comic, the podcast. I also have another one called Serious Disness. Some episodes of which are called Frivolous Disness, because we just talk about silly things and we are silly people. This is myself and my friend Jahan Rana Singh, who you probably don't know from anything else, but he knows how to talk about films, and I know how to annoy him by making him watch bad things. And we've gone through all of the Disney, well, not all of them, we're still doing it, but for whatever reason, we've decided to take seriously the Disney live action remakes. and actually appraise them. And when they're good, and a couple of them are good, we'll say so and you'll know so. And when they're bad, there's like a 6-hour-long Beauty and the Beast special. It's the amount of work that went into that thing was quite incredible. But our latest episode is recorded the day we saw Encanto when that came out. The weekend it came out, we went straight to it. So we were one of the first sort of podcasts to talk about it, and it's been rather nice to see our opinions of it validated by its ongoing roaring success.
Nice.
So yes, if you like that sort of thing, Serious Business and Sonic the Comic the podcast, and you can just find me where I'll post all of that on Twitter as Demon Tomato Dave, and indeed on YouTube as Demon Tomato Dave. I've got lots of good videos that you'll quite like, especially the one called Dave's First Game, which I think you should watch. There you go. That's who I am, Demon Tomato Dave.
Thank you. I'm a like every week listener of Sonic the Comic, the podcast, and I do check out a lot of your YouTube stuff. I also haven't read much of the comic. I just listened to the pod.
Yeah, yes, there are people who do that. Go and have a look. When we say that the art's particularly good or something,
I do check out things like that. Yeah, definitely.
Because you can get them all online. They're all floating around.
I did read an issue as a kid with Medusa on the cover, and I've looked it up. That's way in the future.
I don't remember it, but I believe you.
I read it because it was at a church that I was in.
Oh.
In the little kids section.
Church of Medusa.
That's nice.
Yep. Also, I guess because this recording was coming up, a few days ago I had a dream that I was on your podcast, but trying to bluff because I hadn't read the comic.
Yes.
And then you asked me to do a synopsis.
Yes.
I did a big bit about I guess just because it wasn't that interesting, a lot of it's I've forgotten it, but I like the art.
Very indicative of the time in which it was created.
Yep, all of this. But it was a Spyro the Dragon comic, which I don't think Sonic the Comic ever has.
No, it didn't. No.
But if you've enjoyed this podcast, we can be found on Twitter at MLSFS132. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can find podcasts. Just search Matt and Luke's Sci-Fi Sanctuary. And if you want to help support it and keep it online, you can go to patreon.com/podcastius, where you'll find links to all the other podcasts that me and Matt create.
You got that. Sorry, I was trying to find like a fantastic quote to end things with, but I didn't write so many quotes because they didn't write a script for this, did they?
No.
You ooze, you lose.
There you go. That'll do.
It's the only line I can think of.
I'm a frog.